So I've had a lot of people asking me to break down the reasoning behind some of my classroom policies, like the fact that I accept all late work, that I don't require excuses, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to make a whole series about this because there's no possible way I could answer that in a single video. And I'm going to try to get it as kind of small as possible and progressively work up to why I ended up with the policies that I have. So first off, I want to talk about the problem with like hard deadlines from my perspective. Inflexible deadlines can tell you who has the most privilege in your classroom, but rarely do they tell you who actually understood the material the best. When my students are in my classroom, they all have access to me and they all have access to my material, assuming that I'm doing my job correctly. When they leave that room, that's when life happens, right? We have no idea what each student is facing when they walk out those doors. And if every student has the exact same immovable deadline, then that means I'm not giving every student the exact same assignment. Let's look at an example. Let's say you have two fairly similar students. You have two 19-year-old students, right? But one of them perhaps still lives at home and maybe doesn't work. And the other one has a house full of roommates or an apartment full of roommates and a full-time job. Now, I, as their professor, can still expect to have the same level of quality from each of those students, right? But if I tell them both, okay, you each have exactly 3 days to get this assignment done, then I'm giving far more of an advantage to the student that has the access to a quiet space, right? And that does not have to spend a third of their day working every single day just to afford to be in that classroom. Now, obviously, there's no way for me to equalize everything, right? But my goal in my classroom is to have their grade be a better reflection of how well they engaged with material, how well they understood the material, their mastery of the material, not necessarily who had the most time to work on the material. So by having one of my policies be this flexibility and deadlines, it means that their final grade is just a slightly better representation of how well they actually understood the material and not necessarily who had the most privilege.